Rise and shine, don't hold back. Climb the mountain, no slack. Fight the fight, keep on track. Rise and shine, don't look back.
All right, well, let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about some just some tragic events that have taken place recently, and I guess we'll start off with the wildfire out in LA. I mean, that is, I'm sure everyone's seen footage. That is unreal.
It's crazy. It's like apocalyptic, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've ever seen in my lifetime a disaster this big here in the U.S. that's going to cost so much money. It is. I mean, it maybe compares to what the hurricanes did. I don't know, but this is like, it's terrible, right? And I haven't been a fireman. I haven't seen a lot of the things that people have to deal with. Well, you have to deal with after fire, right? Yeah. And during a fire, and the preparation, which I'm sure we'll get into here in a minute here, you know, but before we get into that, like, we want to express our condolences, right? Like, we're so sad to see how many people have lost their homes and lives now. Yeah. Like, can you imagine, like, waking up one day and, like, you're gone at work and all of a sudden you're like, I can't come back home.
Right. And I think that's a big point to this, right? I mean, first, it's a Palisades, right? So it's very wealthy people, right? A lot of them famous, multimillionaires. And so I think there's a lot of struggling Americans that might be kind of like, oh, I mean, but here's what I get it, right? A $10 million, $25 million, whatever mansion goes up in flames and you're like, okay. But I think the point that hopefully people aren't missing is it's not the homes, it's all the content within.
That's
right?
it.
I mean,
That's
it's all your memories. It's your photographs from when you were a kid. It's your clothes.
Everything.
As dumb as it sounds,
Gone.
it's like I don't have any more outfits to wear. I don't have any shoes to wear. Right? Whatever you had on that day or what you left with is what you have.
Right.
And that's every worldly possession that you may have. And so I think it's just, and then not everyone there is a celebrity. Not everyone there is like this. Uber rich person that can just wave a wand and everything just reappears. It's real people, and of course people have lost their lives. So.
Yeah, it's super sad. And like you said, Dan, it's not just celebrities, not just the wealthy, because there's apartment complexes there, right? There are condos there. There are people that are working hard, that have sacrificed a lot so they can live in a better area, so their children could have a better school to go to.
Right.
And now, they're not just out of a home, they're out of a school, they're out of a, whatever church to go to, whatever it is, it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? So this kind of gets me a little fired up about the whole thing, because being a fireman and having seen what I've seen, having done what I've done, number one, my heart goes out to the first responders.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Being out there. Like, my first thought when I was watching all the footage happening, I shouldn't say that. My first thought went to the people losing their homes. Let me back up and correct that, right? Because that is tragic. Right? You don't have a home, you don't have clothes, your memories, gonzo, your food is gone. Like, what are you going to do with your life now?
Right.
You have what you have on you, and that's it.
Absolutely. And a lot of these people, you know, it's like, you know, it's tragic and horrific at 24. Right. But a lot of these are, you know, you're 65, you're 70, you're at that latter point in your life, and you're literally having to start at ground zero again in many aspects, right? And that's what's it. But anyway, to your point.
Yeah. So my second thought was, okay, the firemen, the first responders that are there, right? And as I was watching footage of these guys with their hose lines trying to put fire, my first thought was, these guys are going to get super sick because they don't have their SCBAs on, the air to breathe.
About that,
right?
Yeah.
And then my wife's like, well, why don't they putting it on? Like, I know you talked about that a lot in your career,
right?
But here's the reality: when you have an event this big, right, you usually have a truck that comes to the scene that fills your air bottles with you. Like, once you run out of air, it fills the air. You put a new bottle on, and you start breathing clean air again, right? But when you have such a big fire, you don't have the resources.
I didn't even think about that, man.
So it's just you, the water, which they ran out of, which we'll talk about here in a second, which really upsets me, right? Kind of pisses me off, right? How do you run out of water?
How do you run out of water?
What the heck has happened?
What are you going to, like, use foul language against a fire?
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Dirt on
right? You can't use a garden hose.
Right.
That's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But my thought was like, okay, these guys are going to have long-term health effects. because everything those fires are putting off, all those bad toxins
and everything,
all the carcinogens, you're breathing that in,
right?
So super unhealthy for them, right? And then they don't have the tools, like we talked about the water. They don't have enough firemen there. Even if we did have 1,000 firemen on the scene,
there's no water.
There's no water. What are they going to do? Right.
Yeah,
so
no, absolutely.
But it kind of goes back to like, okay, well, it shouldn't go back to, but this is what made me think about next. Am I prepared for an event like this?
Yeah.
Right? Are you prepared for an event like this? What if you were home and you got a knock on your door or an alert on your phone that says you have to leave right now? What are you going to do? Do you have a go bag, a backpack full of stuff that at least lasts you 3 days, at least? 72-hour kit? Or are you like, well, shoot.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I don't have anything. Right? Do you have a little safety box that you take with you that has documents in that you might need? A passport. Whatever it is. Birth certificates. Right? Now, all of that is gone. If you don't have prepared for that, it's gone. Do you have a safety spot to meet with your family? If you have to leave and you can't come back home and cell towers are down, how do you communicate with your family? Where are you going to all meet to make sure you're all safe? Right?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And, you know, I want to say that I think it's just amazing. We didn't have this conversation prior to, before turning on the cameras, and I had no idea about. I worked in law enforcement, and I worked with a lot of firemen, and I watched them, but that was in, you know, emergency situations, but not like this, right? It was like, hey, there's a structure fire, and there's a multitude of trucks and equipment and water. There was always water, and you know, so you never think about the fact that they had I don't want to say a luxury of time, but they had a little bit of time to don their gear, to have full tanks of oxygen, and it's not like you can just you know, you put on all that SCBA stuff, and then once you run out of oxygen, it's not like you can just, you know, crack open to get some air. You know, it's like it's contained. So if you don't have tanks to replenish, then what's the point? Right. And I didn't think about that because it was never in the metro area where I worked. That was never an issue. But yeah, when you're looking at something this wide scale. Now the latest news is that it looks to have started. Now I've heard a few theories. Okay, I've heard theories, and I know that others out there have heard that. Like I think InfoWars came out with this. These are agents of BlackRock that they have some kind of interesting footage that kind of make you go, right? You know,
what's happened here?
Someone give me my tinfoil hat, right? Because I have some crazy thoughts. But some of this footage is hard to argue with. And then, you know, the Fonz came out, and everyone's like criticizing the Fonz, but he's like, hey, this is arson, and everyone's like, it's not arson. And they arrested someone this morning, is my understanding, for arson, and they are now saying that this incredible, I mean, there's no words to describe this fire. It looks like it was potentially, I mean, we don't know yet, but potentially could have been started by arsonists. One or others.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past it, right? I mean, what are the chances of like a 4 fire starting in one day when it's like the busiest wind or the biggest gust of winds that you could ever imagine?
Well,
wind and no water are like some of the worst things you can do to a fireman. I mean, I've been on calls where house fires have started. It's been windy, and it's spread to 2 other homes. We had 3 homes, right? But I can't imagine 100-mile-an-hour wind, 90 miles an hour wind. That's a whole other ballgame, right?
I read actually, and I hope I have this right. I believe I read that it was 5 football fields an hour. I want to say an hour. Which you're like, oh, that's an hour. But no, if you're thinking about fire, that's 5 football fields. That's moving, right? And it's regardless of what's in its way is the thing. It's consuming everything in its path. So anyway, so let's talk about preparedness. I think. Okay, so a quick word from our sponsors, 180vault.com. Your data is your business. Keep it that way. Invest in your privacy with 180 Vault. It's encrypted email and cloud storage and so much more. Total digital protection for pennies a day, 180vault.com. Also sponsored by Vital Health, your best source to detox, supplement, and revitalize yourself once you feel how incredible the products are. If you're interested, talk to us. You can join the fastest sales team with the most generous commissions in the business. Visit vitalhealthglobal.com today. Thank you very much, and back to the show. So you had mentioned that with this, like a natural disaster, being ready to evacuate and what you might need to evacuate, right?
Right.
So I want to bring up one other fairly recent event. It's of course kind of gone into the shadow of the LA fire, but that was in just a handful of days ago. We had a terrorist attack in New Orleans.
Yes.
And so I guess let everyone know that a viewer actually sent in a request to have kind of a law enforcement perspective on a couple of items, and that's kind of where we built our topics today. I am former law enforcement. I'll give you a quick synopsis of my background if you don't know, but I'm no longer in law enforcement. I have 19 years of law enforcement under my belt, but I'm no longer employed with any federal local or otherwise, any agency, private, otherwise. 19 years of law enforcement, 10 years as a street cop, almost a decade in criminal intelligence. And anyway, that's a little bit about myself, but going back to New Orleans and what I saw, again, I don't have any intel on the inner workings. It's not public information. I mean, everything that I have researched is open source. And I got to say, first of all, I think it's 15. The latest numbers I saw were 15 people killed.
Wow. It's terrible.
At least one was a young child, and there could be more. Forgive me, I don't know if there were more, but either way, there's 15 people that were killed, and I want to say 37 that were 37 injured is the number that come back in. And I have to start off by saying that no event or gathering can be completely secure of violence, but I have to say, there's no excuse for complacency, and that's
The precautions you could take.
Yeah. I mean, because I want to be very clear. The footage I saw of the responding officers. So if any of you responding officers are watching, the responding officers, nothing less than heroic. You guys responded exactly as we're all trained, exactly as the public expects you. You guys responded and took care of business, and 100%. God bless you. God bless you for that. This is not a criticism, but I have to criticize the fact that this event even happened. A reasonable person can say this could have and should have been prevented. There are 15 people that still should be alive. There are 37 people that should be without injury, in my humble opinion. Again, I don't have all of the inside intel, but I do know this, that agency had Meridian barriers that are designed exactly for it. And just so people know, it's an L-shaped barrier, right? And when a vehicle comes at that barrier at a high rate of speed, low rate of speed, doesn't matter if it's a semi-truck or a Toyota Prius, whatever it is, right? It comes at this barrier. They again, like this, it runs over the barrier. It hits the backside of the barrier, which causes it to pivot up, and usually there's gnarly spikes and teeth, whatever, that lodge up underneath the vehicle. And what it does is it high centers the vehicle. It stops the forward momentum. High centers the vehicle, renders it useless. These barriers are awesome because they're on wheels. You can put them anywhere. They are not an eyesore like a Jersey barrier might be, and they're much more effective. Most agencies can't afford them. The agency I worked for, 750 plus cops, with decent sized agency, very decent sized city. We had lots of major events. We proposed to get these types of barriers. It was hundreds of thousands of dollars to get, what you would need, right?
But they did. They had it.
They had it.
Yeah.
New Orleans, they had it. That's the thing. New Orleans had it. And when they asked the chief of police, hey, why didn't you use these barriers? You know what her response was?
What was it?
I didn't know we had those barriers.
Oh my gosh.
I realize that the chief is a figurehead, right?
Sure.
It's not realistic to think that the chief of police has knowledge of every little thing that's going on within that organization, especially one that size. But very reasonable to expect her to know that she had these barriers.
Well, not just her, Dan. And can I point out too, is like somebody in the organization had to have known this, right? Right.
Yes.
Like it might not be the chief. What about, I don't know how police department works, but like deputy, like fires as deputy chiefs, or there's captains, lieutenants, whatever. Somebody had to have known they had those, right?
That's right. So I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. I do not think it was like, intentionally not done. I don't believe that. I don't want to go down that path. But yes, in every operations plan, and just so those watching understand that may not have law enforcement or first responder type of experience, every public event, if your city is competent, there is an event plan, and somewhere along the line there's law enforcement, there's intelligence work, there's something done on the events plan for public safety, right? And I cannot, in all the years that I was in law enforcement, there was never an event plan that I ever saw that didn't have a contingency for out of control vehicle, whether that be driver error, a medical condition, someone
have a seizure
while driving, something like that, right? Or for the fact that they may be impaired, DUI or DWAI, whatever your county, city, whatever calls it, right? They're impaired. There's always contingencies for these things. There's always barriers. My agency couldn't afford those Meridian barriers that New Orleans didn't use. So, we used school buses, we used city vehicles, we had, at every event we had food trucks, right? And we had the food trucks placed strategically so that they would be a barrier between pedestrians and motor vehicles, right? And when you entered into these venues, we even, just like the military does on a military base, I don't know if you've ever driven on a military base, but where I was at, there's a military base, and before you get to the gate, they put out jersey barriers that you have to do kind of an S pattern to go around. And why is that? So you don't build up ramming speed, right? So we would employ these things. And again, and the reason I'm going into all this is because it's so frustrating that this is like policing 101, right? This is not a new threat. There have been terrorist organizations for years now. Al-Qaeda and all sorts of terrorist organizations have all publicly been asking their followers to do this exact type of mass attack. Right. So it's not like this is, oh my God, we never thought of this. I'm sorry, that's not an excuse. It's people know this, right? And we're seeing it worldwide, not only in this country but abroad. And so I get, like, I'm watching this, and again, I'm not trying, I'm like, it's just the insult to injury is that, again, I don't think I'm alone in this thinking that it could have been prevented reasonably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but as I look at the situation, as I hear what you're saying, in my mind, what I'm thinking, complacency.
Absolutely.
You do so many events. Oh, it's just an event. It's going to be fun. We'll throw some security here, and like you get complacent, right?
Yeah.
You don't cover
put
all
some uniforms over there. Get a couple patrol cars. That's exactly right, and that's why I'm so frustrated. And the thing is, and again, I didn't even know we had those barriers. You have the taxpayer money. They spent 6 figures, maybe 7 figures on these freaking barriers that are collecting dust in some storage warehouse somewhere, right? When they could have been out there deployed. Even for the protection of your own agency, right? Where maybe they would want to run over a cop, let alone all the hordes of people walking up and down the street. I find it absolutely unacceptable. There is a chain of command, to your point. There is that operations plan should have gone up through the chain of command, and maybe it got to the chief, right? The chief. And it could have been like, okay, I'm just going to sign this because I have 3,000 things to sign as a chief.
Right.
I know that there's been a lot of people that have said, well, she's DEI, right? So they're basically saying, look, she never earned the position. She's a buffoon. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's just placed there because she's female. I'm not going to speak to that because I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's the case.
Could be.
And with a remark like that, I mean, there's a probability there. But what I will say is, and they've attacked her age. I mean, she's a little bit up there in age and stuff. But even if she was directly involved or not, which is probably not the case, there's a chain of command. There's patrol chiefs, there's division chiefs, there's you have captains, you have lieutenants, you have sergeants, you have, there's, depending on their rank and how they have it formatted, there's a checks and balances that are supposed to be, right? Mm-hmm. So it starts at the bottom level. Here's the operations plan, and it goes to the next person who is supposedly wiser, a little older, more experienced, more educated because they're a higher rank, supposedly, right? That's how it's supposed to work. Yeah. And they're supposed to go and look at it and be like, oh, well, this looks great, but what about vehicular assault mitigation?
Right.
Right? That would have been, you've got this whole corridor where someone can just take a vehicle and lose control or intentionally, right? Who the hell, someone's got to know that we've got these meridian barricades. Put them out there. Right. So I think a couple things. One, it's cliche, but truly, our thoughts and prayers with the victims of this event. I know that David and we have seen firsthand what a vehicle does to someone.
Of course.
I've been on multiple fatalities and or in some cases serious bodily injury from a vehicle assault, and what a horrific way to lose a loved one. And again, the insult to injury is the fact that reasonably, guys, this could have been prevented, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think the people of New Orleans and the people and visitors to New Orleans, the taxpayers, all those people, they deserve better. They deserve better.
Yeah, and I agree, Dan, and which makes me want to pose this question to you, mm-hmm. right? And to all of you listening as well, right? You and I think differently, right? Okay. Because this is experiences. Because of our experiences, right? Yeah. We've been first responders. We've seen things. We sometimes look at the world a little differently, right?
Absolutely.
I think that sometimes we as first responders look at the world and be like, "You guys are messed up," and they look at us like,
"That's why I don't get invited to a lot of barbecues."
Yeah, you guys are messed up, right?
But never again.
Yeah.
His stories.
So let me ask this question for all of you to ask yourselves. As we've been talking about this is what's coming to mind.
Yeah.
Not that I want everybody to live in a state of high alertness all the time or in fear, because that's not a way to live. Mm-hmm. Okay? But let me ask you this. Are we so trusting everywhere we go that we will be taken care of, that we don't look out for ourselves and our surroundings? Not that you can predict something like this, right? But do we go somewhere and just be like, I'm just going to go have a great time? You and I think about it differently because we've seen what happens, right? And we've been in that environment.
Right.
But I would say the majority of the Americans aren't that way. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know.
I agree 100%. I mean, and I know that you, in your career, and certainly myself in my career, the vast majority of people that we have come in contact with, the general public, and law enforcement's a little bit critical. We have to remind ourselves that not everyone thinks like us, right? Like we would go and sometimes we'd interview victims and we'd be scratching our heads like, why didn't you see this coming? Why? And it's because they live in a different world, right? And unfortunately, I guess, to that point, to answer your question, yes, 100% people that work outside of first responding and people that may not have prior military experience, have never been in critical situations, may not have even witnessed critical situations. We're not talking down to them. I want to be clear. We're not talking down to them. Yeah. But if you haven't experienced it and you have no training in it and you haven't been exposed to it, then the expectation for you to live in that orange and yellow level of readiness and alertness is ridiculous, right? And so Yeah, I think that what we can learn from this, and I think when any tragedy like this happens, we need to figure out what we can learn from it. And the men and women of the New Orleans Police Department, again, I'm not saying an ill word about you, but I'm going to say in this case, whoever was that chain of command, somebody dropped the ball. And I want to, not somebody, a lot of people within that chain dropped that ball. And I'm hoping that agency and other agencies can tighten up a little bit, right, and learn from that, because this could have reasonably been, again,
possibly avoided, right?
Avoided. And then to your point, we as a society, we need to learn that the people that we trust, the agencies, the whatever, the people that we entrust with our safety, they do a good job. They do a great job. It's a safe country to live in, right? They do a good job.
But we're humans. We're all humans.
But we're too reliant on it.
Yeah.
We're too reliant on it. And we in our society, unfortunately, there's a lot of us, again, because they haven't been exposed to other things, they just leave it to the professionals.
Right.
I'm going to leave it to the professionals. And I guess that New Orleans can serve as an example that maybe we shouldn't be leaving it to just the professionals. I mean, I don't want to constantly go everywhere in fear, but what I want to, that maybe the personal safety of myself and my family resides on my shoulders as well,
of course,
as the professionals, right?
Of course.
And the government and all that.
Well, the reality is, if something happens, it's going to be a while before the professionals get there to even help.
Right. And in this particular case, I think that everyone walking along that roadway had an expectation that a vehicle would not be allowed to enter that roadway. Right.
Correct.
And I think that is a reasonable expectation. That's why I'm saying what I'm saying. I think it's a reasonable expectation. But we need to learn from this as a public and say, you know what, if I'm with my family and we're walking down a roadway, I have to know that a vehicle is not getting on that roadway. And maybe, situation depending, maybe I don't walk down that roadway.
Right.
Maybe I walk to the side and I have escape routes in mind, and I keep my family close in case I have to duck into a store or behind a barricade or something like that, and be on the lookout for those types of things. Maybe I don't go to that event if I don't feel that it's adequately safe to take my family to. I can tell you that we don't do a lot of big events because of the things I've seen and the type of investigations that I've had to conduct, and so I guess that might bring us over to family safety. Do you have things you employ with your family, and just, I mean, for those may not have family members or may not have kids and a wife and all that, anything you do to...
Yeah, so I'll start with me first, and then I'll kind of break into my family a little bit. But because you and I met together in law enforcement in an academy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Ever since that day, and I haven't lost this habit till today. And I swear, everybody thinks I'm checking everybody out. That's not what I'm doing.
Right.
Like, when I see somebody,
I know the truth.
Yeah. But when I see somebody, I look at them, their face, my eyes automatically go down to their hands and their waistband.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it happens.
It's habit, right?
It's habit. I don't think about it. Yeah, I don't think about it. It's just what happens. I'm like, right?
Yeah.
And it's everybody, right? And now, I will say, working where we worked before kind of messed with me, and this is not a healthy way to live.
Right.
But for a while there, when I would be walking down the store with my wife, I'd look at people and I'd be like, in my mind, I'd formulate a plan, how I'm going to take them out. If they're going to do something to me, how am I going to take this individual out? Right?
Yep.
Which is, again, not the healthiest way to live.
Understood.
Right?
Yep.
Right? But that's what I would do. And once I went to the fire department and started changing my career, I kind of started falling out of these habits, right? But there is a code word that I have with my family, right? And that started when you and I started working together. because I started seeing a lot of these individuals out in public, and I'm like,
Right.
this isn't okay.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a code word that we have that if I say it, they know they need to leave my side and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right. Because I want to protect my family the best that I can.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say, as far as being out in public, that's really the only thing that I have. I know I need to implement more. Right. But for fires, right, I have a place to meet. And if it's not safe to go on your street, what's a secondary place?
Gotcha.
That we meet together, right?
Yeah.
When I go to hotels, this might sound crazy, a lot of you, but you know what first thing I do when I get in my hotel room?
What's that?
You know that map behind the door that has all the exits?
Oh, you look at it.
I look at it. I see it's like, here's a red dot where I am.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
what are all the exits? What's the closest exit that I can get to? Right? Because the elevators aren't going to be working.
Yeah.
And if they are, there's going to be 1,000 people there.
So most of the viewers are like, there's a map.
You're right.
They're like, I need to check in, you know, I have to kick off my shoes. Yeah, no, totally. I get it.
I look at it and be like, okay, this is where I'm at. I got to turn right. I got to turn left. I got to turn right, whatever. I look at all the exits available to me, right? And the fastest one that I can get to, right? So those are some of the things that I do.
That's interesting. So I look at the map too, and what's different. So I know where you're coming from. You're thinking, okay, if this hallway's filled with smoke, and I can't see where's the quickest exit. You know, what are all my exits from obviously fire, maybe even like panicking people, things of that nature, right? I look at the same map and I'm like, okay, I've got concealment here. I've got cover here. I can return fire here. You know, it's like, you know, but either way, you need to be looking at the map as a point, right? Because you want to remove yourself as safely as possible from whatever is unsafe. So,
and I will tell you this before, because I want to hear what you do as well. All right.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this. I don't know if this is a God-given gift to me or what it is.
Yeah.
But I could be having a conversation with somebody, but I'm listening what's going on everywhere else.
That's situational awareness, right? Situational awareness.
I am like constantly, I think like the rest of my family kind of like tunes everything out and just kind of like, and I don't purposely do it.
Yeah.
It just comes naturally to me. Like I'm like, and I hear things, I turn around and I'm like, you know?
Yeah.
And people are like, well,
I'm going to say something controversial, but I think women are the worst at it. Sorry.
I'll just leave it there. But
and I say it comes from a place of love, though. I think like when you're having a conversation, or if you're engaged with a woman, or the women are engaged in conversation, I believe that they are very hyper focused on the engagement, the event, right?
I think it's amazing that they're good at that.
I think that, and that's what makes them so in tune with the nuances of a conversation, the nuances and details of. So it's not necessarily, I'm not trying to throw
not at all
stones or anything, but what I find, I mean, if you don't believe me, go to a busy Costco on Saturday morning and push a cart around Costco.
Yeah.
Like, it's mostly ladies there, but the men are guilty of it too. So I'm not saying it's just women, but, and they'll be walking along, just stop. And they've got like 50 people behind, and it's like, you know, and then they'll turn and bump your car. I mean, it is a shit show. But that is in my opinion, like a microcosm of a picture, right? Am I saying that right? A picture of our society, completely like focused on their cart, pushing their cart, and oblivious to anything else going on around them, right? Agreed. And so the reason we're going into all of this is we are trying to create thought-provoking thought, right? Basically just make you start thinking about this stuff, because unfortunately I don't think we're going to see these types of events going away, right? We're seeing an increase of them. And I think it was just a couple years ago that happened in New York. The guy rented the truck from Home Depot and ran over a bunch of New Yorkers that were just walking the street. I mean, it was horrific. So we have to be hyper vigilant at times when we're out in the public. You mentioned what we have a family too. We have an unsafe. We call it unsafe word, right? Where we're unsafe. And so when I'm with my family, if my kids, my wife, myself, if anyone utters our unsafe word, it means that they saw something that was not good. They maybe saw something, maybe didn't see something, but they have just a gut feeling. And I want to, your spidey senses,
right.
Learn to develop that. Learn to listen to your inner voice, whatever you call it, right? We would call it spidey sense in my department, right? It's like okay, my the hair on the back of my neck would go up, and like when you would go into maybe searching a home, there was just situations where you're like tingling,
right?
Like holy crap, something's going to go down, right? And I've talked to my kids about this, and I've talked to my wife, and so if someone says that unsafe word, and I guess I'm suggesting that maybe this is something you implement with your family as well, there's one rule, and the one rule is everyone stops what they're doing. They immediately, I don't care if they're looking at a screen, I don't care if they're eating a meal, whatever they're doing, they just stop, and they stop their talking, everything, they just stop. And they stand up, and they remove themselves from that immediate location. It could be just going around the corner. It could be just down the hall. And there's a very, very, very brief sit rep, right? Like it's like, okay, hey, this is what I saw. Right. Whoever said it. And if it's a child, it might be hard for them to articulate, but they're like, I just don't feel safe. And then as parents, you have to make a parental call. Like, do you go back and finish your meal? Right? Do you go back to the situation? Do you walk away from the situation? Do you walk away from the area? You have to know your child. You have to know what they're trying to articulate. You have to follow your gut on it, right? But if it's like your wife or yourself, like, no, this is what I saw, you have to make an immediate response. Do I walk away? Do I run? Do I run away? Yeah. Is it like, hey, we get out here now, right? And that brings me up to you have to know your exits. We talked about this with the map, right? With the hotel. You better know your exits. Every event, every venue you walk into, you should be scanning for entrance and egress, right? Right. And you should know if you're on the 9th floor or the 2nd floor, because going out a window is going to be dramatically different going out the 9th or the 2nd. 100%. Right? Yeah. You're going to have a dramatic outcome, right? So, things like that. And, my family chooses to employ some tools. Our kids are too young for cell phones, but we have smartwatches. Right. And so I can track them. I can text them. They can call me. They can text me in case we get separated. Right. We carry weapons. My wife is licensed and all that, and of course I am. But we do carry weapons, and I know that's a very personal choice. I'm not necessarily saying you should or shouldn't. And define the word weapon. Right. Define it. How is it a chemical weapon? Is it an electronic weapon? Is it a firearm? Is it an edged weapon? Right. We're all the above. But
I can pull out my bazooka.
Yeah. Right. The hand grenade. Just in case things go real bad. But it's just, in my mind, it's a good idea to carry a weapon. Again, your level of training, your level of comfort is very important. There are a lot of people who don't feel comfortable with the firearm. Right. I mean, my thoughts on that are: go get educated, go get comfortable with the firearm. Right. And God forbid you ever have to use it. I hope you never have to use it. But better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Right. Right. That's my thoughts on that. But bottom line. And tell me if there's more you want to go over or if you disagree with this, but I wanted to kind of just say that you don't have to be a former Navy SEAL. You don't have to be Special Forces. You don't have to have, decades of law enforcement or whatever to come up with a good plan. And I will tell you that even if you're running a cash register at Whole Foods, I don't know, right? Whatever your industry is, better to come up with a plan that is literally a horrible, shitty plan, terrible plan. Better to do that
and nothing at all
than to have no plan. All right. So one of the questions that a viewer sent in was, "What is my everyday carry?" So I'll ask you, David. What's your everyday carry?
Well, I do have a Glock 26 is what I use when I carry.
Okay. All right. Well, what about your
Is that what you mean by carry?
No, like what is your everyday, like what is your everyday carry like on your person? Do you have when you go to the office or when you go to the grocery store?
Well, currently nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing. It's funny because, I mean, I got my keys and my phone, and every now and then, if I do carry my gun, that's what I carry, right? But, you know what, it's funny because when I was a firefighter, I had a pocket knife with me everywhere, at least.
Okay.
Right? And now that I'm no longer that, I've kind of fallen out of that habit. Again, going back to complacency.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I
kind of fallen out of that habit. So it's,
oh man,
you'll get one of these, all right?
I want to give you my list of what I carry every day, and you're like, "Oh my gosh." Yeah. Obviously, carry what you think you'll need. I'm going to give you an example of everyone an example of what I carry every day, and why I carry it a little bit. It's not going to be everything that I carry because, I mean, we'll be here. I carry a lot, but the ones I wrote down, the ones I think are kind of have value to maybe the audience and are interesting, right, on some level. So the first thing I carry every day, which is one I know you carry too, is a cell phone, right? Cell phone, obviously, you can use it as a map, a communication device, a flashlight, etc., right? But I guess we leave that one out only because everyone carries one, but what if you're in a situation where you don't have your phone, or the phone is rendered useless, right? The battery's dead, the cell towers are down, whatever, so can't be used for its intended purpose. I guess maybe a flashlight. But I carry every day. I'm going to call it an edged weapon or edged tool. Right. So just like you, when you're talking about when you're a fireman, you learn to carry a knife with you everywhere. Right. So I carry a knife with me, and the things I think are important about if you are going to carry a knife every day is that you carry a knife that is very sharp, because what the hell does a dull knife do, right? Yeah. I mean, and that it fits within the legal guidelines, whatever state you live in, that type of thing, or whatever you're licensed for, but really carry one that's of quality with a quality blade, because a lot of times you might not be cutting with it, you might be prying with it. You want it to have a certain amount of strength, right? So you can use it as a tool, not just a weapon or cutting device. And then as far as if you have to use it as a weapon, your little Swiss Army knife, that's not going to cut it, right? So cut it, But you need something with a decent blade length to use as a weapon, unfortunately if you have to use it as a weapon. So I have here kind of my everyday carry. So I was gonna knife. So depending on the outfit, like I carry a pocket knife like this, or this one's a little bit more robust, and so it depends on the outfit. If you're in gym shorts, that might kind of pull your shorts down a little bit. So or if you're I wear a lot of slacks and dress clothes to the office, so this might not be really reasonable, but I do carry something slimmer like that. And the one that people may not think of, and this comes back from the law enforcement days, I carry a pen, because you never know when you have to write something down. Right. So it's good to always carry a pen, right? But specifically, I carry a metal pen that is pretty strong, right? Robust. This is for dress clothes. This is for non-dress clothes, and it's a striking device and a pen. The reason that I think a pen is valuable, again, sometimes you just need to write something down, but it's about weapon retention. So you could if that's all you had, you could certainly use it as a weapon in a pinch, but in some type of physical altercation, if you needed to. Right. But I carry I guess I should mention I carry a firearm. I still do. I have for almost 2 decades. I've carried a firearm every single day. It's a hard habit to break. So I carry a firearm even today, now that I'm retired or separated from service, whatever you want to call it. And I carry on right side because I'm right-handed. So part of that is if you get into a struggle, and this is my one critique or criticism of, I see a lot of concealed carry people that are carrying in the wrong areas, like they're carrying it like above their butt crack, right? And they're bending over, and you can see the gun. Like part of carrying concealed is that it stays concealed, right? And when it doesn't stay concealed, can you retain? What if someone wants to take it? right? What if someone is like, that's a gun that's worth a lot of money. I see, oh, that's a custom Kimber 1911. That's, or they just want your gun, and how do you defend if it's like above your butt crack, right? If it's, and you got a 52-inch waist, now you have a problem. Yeah. So I carry on the hip most of the time, sometimes up front, but if there is a struggle for that gun, the best place to keep it is in the holster. So you're gonna clamp down on that, keep it in the holster. That's it. That way it can't shoot you or anyone else. And the thoughts are that if it goes to the ground, it's probably going to be like a rustling match of some magnitude, right? And if it hits the ground, then you might get a point where this hand can reach for your trusty pen, and you can do something other than writing. Right. To get yourself to where you're in a position where you can go to a superior weapon. So that's my thoughts on that. I wear a watch every day because it tells time, which is good. But also, now I don't think that we'd necessarily encounter this in this country, in the US, but I'm not saying that you couldn't. In some cases, it might make you more of a target to have a nice watch. But I always carry, or I always wear a watch, and it's usually almost always a nicer watch. Now, it's not necessarily a Rolex Submariner or something like that, but I wear a nicer watch because I have a friend that was a former special. He was a ranger. So he was a ranger, and when his team deployed, they all actually went and had entry level Rolex watches. Right. And I was asking him, like, hey man, what's with the Rolexes? And he goes, well, when you're overseas, and I just thought that was really cool. And that's why I'm sharing it. When you're overseas, if shit hits the fan and you need to get onto a boat, you need to get out of a sticky situation, right? You're incarcerated, right? You need to hop on a train. You need to grease the wheels, right? Or grease the gears. You can just, hey, I've got this nice Rolex, right? I've got this nice Rolex. Rolex is a brand that's known worldwide, right? There's everyone knows Rolex, and it can be your passport to life. So I just thought it was fun to mention that one.
That's great.
The last thing I'd mention is this one I think is kind of important. Wallet. So you have money, credit cards, whatever, but a laminated piece of paper with contact info. Oh yeah. So we all have cell phones, right? And the problem is, what if you lose your cell phone? I don't know about you. I don't memorize a lot of numbers anymore.
I don't either.
And so, I think I have my wife's memorized. I don't know. I just, I push the button, right? And so I have all those numbers written down and laminated. So in the event I lose my phone, I can call people. And also in the event that I'm incapacitated for whatever reason, I'm hit by a car, I have a medical emergency, whatever, whoever's there has people they can call, presumably that can give them instruction, etc. So that's my everyday.
Love it. It's awesome.
Yeah. And so I think to kind of end this episode, we should probably maybe talk a little bit about just kind of be prepared. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a smart thing to do.
I feel like something's coming.
I agree. I do too.
I don't know. Maybe it's just paranoia, right? But I just feel like I can't shake this feeling that, and we started off talking about the wildfires, right? Whether it's man created or not. If it's an act of God or if it's an act of a crazy arsonist, I don't know. I don't think it really matters at the end of be prepared, right? The go bag, like you mentioned. So I feel like whether it's a Third World War, a lot of people, if you're paying attention to any of the geopolitical stuff going on in the world,
things are crazy.
Things are crazy, right? And I don't know that every American is really tuned in to all that's going on, but there's a lot of crazy things going on. There's always talk about how the electric grid is vulnerable to cyber attack, etc. And then other utilities as well. I don't even want to think about what the country would do, after 3 days of no electricity. All the food in your refrigerator spoiling. And so let's talk a little bit about preparedness. Go bag is always a good idea, whether you're bugging out or bugging in, right? You want to have kind of a collection of stuff. By no means is my list complete. We could talk for 5 hours on, a huge list.
Yeah.
Right. But some of the basics I've got is, I think maybe, and tell me if you want to add to this list, take away from this list, whatever, but communication devices outside of traditional cell phones,
right?
Presumably those don't work. Water or I should say, and filter, right? Because life straw, something like that. Because if you go find a source of water, presumably you're not going to have gallons and gallons and gallons of water.
Right.
So you'll have to find a source of water, and you don't want to drink from water that is going to make you violently ill, give you a fever, and render you useless or dead.
You'll be worse off that way.
Yeah, worse off, right? And then, of course, some source of food. MREs come to mind just because they don't need to be cooked. They're better if they're heated up, but they don't need to be cooked. They have a 10,000 year shelf life or whatever it is, right? And they're fairly lightweight. And the key important thing is to remember it needs to be high in calorie.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Because presumably you're going to be burning, if you don't have a lot of food, you need to feed your body with high calorie, so high calorie items. A source for light, a source for fire, medications. I have written down team. Hopefully you have some friends, like-minded individuals to team up with, because you're way stronger as a team than you are solo.
Strength in numbers.
That's right. Preset meetup location. You mentioned that one earlier. That's been that's really good to discuss with friends and loved ones and potential team members, right? A knife. I have knife and weapon as two. You define weapon however you want to define it, whatever your level of I guess training or whatever you feel comfortable with, but some type of a weapon to protect yourself, and then a knife for cutting.
Yeah, I'll leave it at
that. Emergency blanket, because even if you live in a climate like we do, we live in a hot climate, but at nighttime
it gets cold.
It gets cold, and the thing is, a lot of people don't realize, even if it doesn't go below freezing or to freezing, you lower that core body temperature enough, then you'll expire in the middle of the night, right? So emergency blanket, it's easy to fold up, small, light. And the last thing I'm going to mention, in my opinion, that should be in everyone's go bag, and I'm talking about the go bag up here. If you don't have the proper mindset, I don't care what's in your bag.
Right.
That's the number one thing that you can pack, is the prevailing mindset. I will prevail regardless of what kind of situation it is. I will prevail.
Right.
I want to say that this is something that was kind of an academy thing, or I don't know, learned along the way in law enforcement. Not all of us are necessarily born badasses.
Right.
I mean, probably like Chris Kyle was. There's a handful of, incredible. Chuck Norris was obviously born a badass, but not all of us are born these incredible. But if you find yourself in a critical situation, you have a choice to make, and maybe you're an accountant somewhere, right? Or maybe you're a crossing guard. I don't know. Right. And you need to pack the mindset of prevailing. And I'm going to give you a little trick. I think it's worthwhile, and that is to kind of like fake it till you make it type of thing, or envisioning yourself as someone else.
You have to, in those situations. You have to, right? Like, it's survival time.
I mean,
right?
Look, again, not all of us have decades of law enforcement or military or first responder type of training. Not most of us, I would say, most of us in this country have not even been involved in a critical incident.
Right.
I think the average, what you're going to have to help me on this. I think they say the average person will encounter, I think, is it 6 critical incidents in their lifetime? I think that.
I don't even know.
And then for first responders, it's like 900.
That's a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's why you're all messed up in the head. But the point I'm trying to make, if you are feeling very scared, you're shitting your pants, you're in a shit in pants situation, right? You need to emulate someone that's a badass, right? That can be a living person that you know. That can be a historical figure. That can be a fictional figure. You know, you're Negan from The Walking Dead. You're Chuck Norris. You're Rambo, right? And you have to embody that energy and that persona. And there's no shame in this if that's what you have to do to get you through this critical situation. And I know there's going to be people that are laughing right now, like, "Oh, come on!" But I challenge you this. I challenge you this. If you don't believe that this is coming from a real place, what if you were in a situation? Maybe you're a badass, or maybe you're not. Right? You're just some schmuck. Right? You're caught up in a situation, critical situation, and you decide to channel your inner. Who can I think of right now? Like your inner Ross from Friends, right? No offense to Ross from Friends, right? Or you know, I don't know, Hugh Grant. Right. Again, no offense to Hugh Grant, but he always plays that certain character in all his, right. If you channel your inner Hugh Grant or your Ross from Friends and you're running around useless, like just panicking, you're fucked. I'm serious, right? If you picture yourself in a critical situation, emulating one of those people or one of those characters, I should say, right? And you're screwed. You're not going to fare well, right? And so that's what I think it has merit. And for those of you out there, there's lots of different resources to figure out what maybe to put in a go bag and be prepared. There's lots of resources on mental preparedness, situational awareness. Some of the things we mentioned here, we think are just some tips that might help with you and your family. And then, you know, there's even this book here. My man, James Rawls, he wrote that great book, again, Amazon, on the Amazons. Great book to help you prepare for mental preparedness, and it also has a lot of great detail on things you should consider for your physical preparedness, right? And survival if things were to go bad. Right. So,
I think the important thing, Dan, is to just start taking action, right? Start getting prepared.
Yeah.
You can't do everything overnight. But start with something small, right? Start with your mindset. Start getting some water. Start whatever it is. Start doing something, because something is better than nothing.
100%. Don't get overwhelmed and you know get crazy and like and then give up because you know a little at a time. It takes steps. But like you said, any plan's better than no plan. Right. So have a plan. All right. So we'll see you later, guys.
Okay. See ya.
Rise and shine, don't hold back. Climb the mountain, no slack. Fight the fight, keep on track. Rise and shine, don't look back.